Good morning, everyone. My name is Olanike Adeoye, the coordinator for the this EU Technology Workshop. We are all welcome to this workshop. We're glad you're here. On behalf of the SPE Lagos Section Chair, Mr. Michael Oyere, we would like to welcome you to this two-day workshop, Team Industry 4.0 Technology Enabler for Realizing a Lower Unit Operating Cost, organized by the Lagos Section 61. The event promises to be very interesting, so please sit back and have a wonderful time even at this workshop. So just a quick one, in the face of the volatile crude oil prices in recent times, the great impact by COVID-19 pandemic, push for the lower cost oil is driving harder now than ever. So hence the need for this workshop in such a time like this. So this workshop seeks to highlight the far-reaching benefit of the fourth industrial revolution as an enabler for realizing the lower unit operating cost, which is imperative as the oil and gas industry faces intense pressure to improve operational efficiencies and thrive in the evolving business environments. Please, let's pay attention and eliminate all sources of distractions so that we can maximize the value from the workshop. So we're going to be showing shortly the agenda for the workshop. So hopefully within less than 3 hours we'll be done. So we're starting with the welcome address by the section chair. So just before that, we'll do a safety moment, and then we'll introduce the keynote speaker, and then we'll have the keynote speech. So after that, we're going to have introduce the panel session. We'll introduce the panelists and the moderator, and we'll have the panel session for about 1.5 hours. And after that, we'll have the closing remarks, and then we'll end the event. So for the safety moment, we all know what's ongoing with the world global pandemic. We need to keep to stay safe. Let's remember to wash our hands frequently. Let's remember to use alcohol-based sanitizer to get rid of the germs. Let's remember to wear face masks when we are out in the public, and also social distancing. Let's avoid large gatherings, and if you're feeling unwell, let's do self-isolation, and of course, let's get the necessary medical help that we need. So also for us, as this is a virtual event, and we are going to be here for like 2.5 hours, less than 3 hours. So please, let's remember to stretch our hands, stretch your legs, but we hope to keep you entertained so that there's no boring moments during this session. Please, let's make welcome the section chair, Mr. Michael Oyere, for his welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nike. Good morning. I'll begin.
Yeah, good morning, Ms. Michael. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. The keynote speaker, Mr. Abdurrahman Minjiawa, distinguished panelists, Mrs. Betty Ugonna, Mr. Folarunsho Afolabi, Mr. Olanrewaju Ojo Aromokudu, Mr. Ani Udo, Mr. Prince Abangu, Mr. Daniel Adeyemo, and our very own moderator, Oladipo Ashafa, distinguished members joining us from Nigeria and across the globe, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this two-day event themed Industry 4.0, Technology Enablers for Realizing a Low Unit Operating Cost. The workshop commences today with a robust panel session and culminates tomorrow with a virtual field trip, as well as 6 other value-adding short courses. There couldn't have been a better time for us to be having these discussions and shared learnings, particularly with all the shocks our industry and indeed the entire world have been facing for the most part of this year, 2020, ranging from digitalization, pressure on alternative, cleaner and cheaper energy sources, the COVID-19 pandemic, and a sustained low oil price regime. Our industry is grossly being challenged. Our principal in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, the NNPC, are driving and intensifying efforts towards the realization of a $10 per barrel oil production cost by next year, and with lots of other operators also pushing for this goal and even less. What is very obvious and stands out is the need for improved efficiency in our operations. And this undoubtedly only comes with the right application of technology. Here we are today, gathered to chart a way forward for our dearly beloved industry, as we discuss and proffer solutions well available within the Industry 4.0 perspective that enables the realization of a reduced operating cost of $10 per barrel. We shall be covering critical areas such as supply chain optimization, integrated software solution platforms, remote operations, predictive analysis and automation systems, and finally, human capital development, which is key. I am confident that the range of professionals and experts we have on the panel today, together with you, our very resourceful audience who will be actively participating via the Q&A session of this live event, we will arrive at very practical solutions that ensure our industry moves forward in the right direction towards improving operational efficiencies, reducing wastes, and operating indeed very responsibly in consideration of our people and environment. All these will keep us on track towards a realization of our desired low unit operating cost, with a prime recognition of the role of technology in all these processes. I shall therefore conclude by saying, sit tight, and if you must, get your pen and paper, or do I say, your smart devices. Get them very handy, as we shall all need to take down vital points from all that will be shared today. On this note, and on behalf of SPE Lagos section, I once again welcome you to this workshop and wish us all a very successful deliberation. Thank you very much for joining us today, and good morning.
All right, thank you so much, Section Chairperson Michael Oyere, for that wonderful welcome address. Now to move into the meat of the session, we'll be kicking this off with a keynote address by the keynote speaker, Abdulrahman Mijinyawa. Abdulrahman Mijinyawa is the Asset Optimization, Digital and Technology Manager for Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company, where he's accountable for managing wells, reservoir, and facility health for sustained optimal operations. He is also responsible for the countrywide integration of Shell's digital transformation agenda, as well as the deployment of new technologies from discovery through to maturation and final implementation. He has over 15 years of experience and has been involved in driving business delivery across the full spectrum of Shell's upstream oil and gas portfolios, both in Nigeria and in the Netherlands. He has a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Ahmadu Bello University and a master's degree in petroleum engineering from the prestigious Imperial College London. He's an active member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers and has authored several technical papers. He considers himself a digital technology and energy transition enthusiast and continues to seek out opportunities to build digital and sustainable energy solutions for Shell and the society at large. And you would also agree with me, that's the reason he's here today, to share his wealth of experience and also contribute to the theme of this workshop, Technology Enablers for Realizing a Lower Unit Operating Cost. Please let's make welcome AR, as he's fondly called, to take up the virtual floor for his keynote address. Over to you, AR.
Good morning, LSE. Please confirm you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Just checking if the few slides will be shared on your end again. Checking with Odion before I start.
Audion will be sharing the slides from this end. So I think you can carry on whilst he streamed that on. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. Because as a live event, I presume that we have participants from all around the world. I want to stand on existing protocols while hoping that you and your families continue to keep safe and well in these challenging times. I also want to thank the SPE Lagos chapter for the opportunity to share a few words on the theme of this workshop, Industry 4.0, Technology Enablers for Realizing a Lower Unit Operating Cost. Before I go further though, I would like to point out that what I'm sharing today is on behalf of myself and not on behalf of my employer. Just a disclaimer to fulfill all righteousness. So, a bit of context. The section chair already provided some background and thinking around why we're having this conversation, and I'm sure all of us are, keenly aware, of the situation that we face as an industry. And as observed in the workshop synopsis, the oil and gas industry, like many other parts of the world economy, has had one of its most challenging years in 2020. The acceleration of digital transformation and the increasing awareness around, and in some cases, manifestation of climate change continues to put the industry in the spotlight. And not always for the best of reasons, we must admit. These two phenomena, as digital transformation and energy and climate change, they add to the increasing volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, or as some people say, VUCA, in the macro environment. Volatility in energy demand, uncertainty in economic outlook and regulation, complexity in supply chains and standards, both environmental and industry, and ambiguity in societal preferences. Society wants more and cleaner energy, but also, wants to move away from fossil fuel. And all of these make it increasingly difficult for businesses to plan, as I'm sure we're all keenly aware of in our various affiliations. Now, the fungible nature of our industry's main products, oil and gas, has meant that the COVID-19 pandemic exponentially exacerbated these trends as the digital transformation and climate change issues. Now, while many believe that the rapid changes and uncertainties we face in the world today are mainly due to the pandemic, many others believe that COVID only sharpened pre-existing fault lines. And this has amplified some of the most disruptive tendencies when it comes to global trade. We see increasing protectionism both in Europe and the United States. We see multilateral bodies struggling to remain relevant, both on the United Nations front, but also in the EU. Supply chains are no longer as reliable as they once were, with disruptions, brought about by the pandemic. and also people trying to build resilience, supply chain resilience closer home than relying on previously cheaper ones that maybe were farther away from home. The energy transition itself is very likely to accelerate further, and the destruction of energy demand, that COVID-19 has wrought, will take a very long time to restore, if it is ever restored, that is. And all this, like I said, the society at large is demanding more energy, but with two caveats. That energy must be cleaner and more affordable. So, like has been observed, we've got our work really well cut out for us. So while thinking about this topic, discussing with the organizers and reflecting on the synopsis, it's always a temptation to go into some of the more action-oriented, levers and solutions that we have, around digital technology towards improving unit operating costs. But I thought maybe it would be useful also to bring a slightly different twist or view to it, and I thought to look at it from more of a strategic perspective. I will talk about a few examples, of how digital technology is already, solving many of our problems, and how maybe we could leverage this more. But I would like to talk a bit more strategically, and I'll look at three things as shown on the view graph. So collaboration, capability, and customer centricity. And so if I go to collaboration, as the boundaries between industries become more blurred, with new entrants coming into the energy industry as well, the oil and gas industry must look beyond itself for extra leverage. We know for a fact that our industry has been critical in contributing to technological advancements over the past 50 years. However, the acceleration brought about by digital technologies over the past 10 to 15 years have mainly emanated from outside of our industry. So from tech startups to local finance providers, we must look to deploy global solutions that fit our local context. For example, we should ask ourselves, how could major operators partner with software companies to access new technology and capabilities? And how do we partner with traditional suppliers to develop new products and services, and even new commercial arrangements? Some of these commercial arrangements, for example, could be performance compensation models, where we pay for services based on, say, asset availability, and as such, our original equipment manufacturers and our service providers and our maintenance contractors take on a risk of downtime. And so rather than waiting for our equipment to fail, they will ensure that the equipment keeps running, because they get a cut, of whatever benefit there is, the higher the availability is. So some of these collaborations are important to further stretch, the leverage that we have from digital technology. However, this model will require us, somebody like myself that works for an operator, to marshal data from suppliers, because we are the integrators. We sit at the center of all of the data. We will need to develop new standards for new data platforms, with other operators and Internet of Things technology suppliers. And also we need to use this platform to share data to suppliers, so that they are more, the providers of even sharper service-focused arrangements. Service providers, on the other hand, will need to have a mindset shift. So from focusing on hardware sales, they need to move to leverage their sensors, and other pieces of equipment to produce, manage, support, and correctly price software-centric solutions that will be compatible with, the operator's data infrastructure and protocols. I know this model may sound elegant and ambitious. However, there's already a real-life example, and I'm sure some of us are aware of the Open Subsurface Data Universe, which is an open energy data platform from the Open Group, and is designed to support both renewable and non-renewable energy sectors. It is a single data platform that will contain all the relevant data that will be accessible from a single set of application program interfaces, where the data platform acts as a system of record and where the data will be mastered. So this is an industry-wide collaboration amongst many oil and gas producers, major oil and gas producers, and even some non-core producers, where they will bring in all of our data, all of our well and subsurface data, on the same platform, both on the cloud, global and local cloud, to enable, to enable outsiders and small operators and small tech startups to come and build solutions for us. A bit like like the Android, and this has the potential to really accelerate capability building by providing standards and lowering barriers to entry. Because we know that barriers to entry are, in our industry are amongst the highest you will find anywhere. And this, this symbiosis or proposed symbiosis between, the big operators and our large data platform and, smaller tech startups brings me to the second of my lens, which is capability. And talking about capability here, you look at it both in terms of people and systems. Regarding people, I believe that large operators can reduce overheads by offshoring non-core activities such as, invoicing, work preparation, feasibility studies, and even some front-end engineering scopes. On the other hand, local and international service providers can step in and provide these services at a fraction of the cost by leveraging their more agile, leaner, and tech-centric business models. You can imagine a single digital system or platform to manage the entire marine fleet of the Nigerian oil and gas industry. This will not only increase transparency and competition, but could also maximize asset utilization by, for example, providing much needed flexibility to operators whose activity scopes are being limited due to cuts in capital and operating budgets. So for somebody like myself as an asset optimization manager, I have a limited number of, say, well activities that I want to do due to budget costs and other constraints. And if I were to go and charter a vessel on my own, it would probably make my unit operating or unit technical cost for those well interventions really high. However, if there's a system that allows me to key into some sort of, pooling arrangement, then it allows me to take 30, 60, and 90 days in a year, but then because there are 6, 7, 8, 9 other operators that also have 30, 60, 90 days in the year, the service provider, who is the vessel owner, is assured of a 12 or 18-month period of activity. And then he or she is able to provide, that service at a much lower cost. But these collaborations can only happen if we have, open, robust, and nimble data platforms. Now, when we move to systems, we must think about how to achieve the scale necessary to derive marginal cost benefits from digital technologies. While many companies in the industry, in our industry, have global scale within their companies, so for example, Shell or Chevron, Exxon, and the others have global scale, the drive for efficiency locally remains very fragmented. We're all, Shell Nigeria, Chevron Nigeria, Seplat and Co, trying to do our own thing. And in that case, the skill that is normally, crucial to driving, extra benefit from digital technologies is missing. So if we think about, for example, how do we empower local foundries to be able to deploy 3D printing services to the whole industry, not just one company at a time? How can we incentivize our local tech startups to build solutions for the industry without us having to run to Bangalore, Rio de Janeiro, or Amsterdam every time we need an emergency replacement for a software part or a broken piece of equipment? And some of these solutions would probably have to require targeted venture funding or even acquisitions. And if I give an example, on a global level, so Shell as a company is building capability in electric mobility, partly, by doing internal research, but also by acquiring, established concerns. So Shell in 2018 acquired a company called New Motion, which is an electric vehicle charging company with the highest number of electric vehicle charging ports in Europe. So sometimes our industry needs to think differently, and we need to collaborate, possibly fund, and in some cases even acquire, some of these startups and smaller companies that can help us build that capability that we do not traditionally possess, and that will probably take a very long time to build in-house. So hopefully we'll soon begin to see similar activities, in Nigeria. And coming to the third of the three lenses, customer centricity. So the customer and their choices, and who are our customers? We have various customers, from the government to our service providers, to our staff, and to our communities. So as we deliberate through this workshop, I urge us all to take an end-to-end view of the oil and gas value chain, from exploration, development, project delivery, operations, trading and supply, and even refining, all the way to the commissioning and restoration. Because it is only this view that will show us why people, corporations, and governments act in certain ways. While large operators who deal directly with regulators need to think deeper about how they can increase government take and taxes via, for example, more transparent production and lifting data, service providers, on the other hand, must be ready to liaise with original equipment manufacturers to make it easier and cheaper to provide follow-up maintenance services. For example, using drones, ROVs, and other remote support services, rather than the traditional, pay-as-you-go approach. And all of this, must happen within relevant laws governing competition. However, I believe that there are many more areas for us to cooperate and synergize to unlock value and savings, than there are for us to compete. So moving quickly along, what have digital technology done for us so far? I'll run through some examples, and hopefully this will, whet our appetite as we proceed through the rest of this panel discussion, but also the rest of the 2 days. First, predictive analytics via machine learning uses machine learning models to predict the onset of anomalies in processes and equipment, such as compressors, pumps, and control valves. And this enables frontline workers to respond effectively. These models simultaneously correlate millions of data points to provide valuable insights, that then dynamically identify threats and opportunities for sustained operations while maximizing process safety, availability, and mitigating reliability risks. Many operators have reported reductions of up to 40% in unscheduled deferment from this digital solution, which reduce equipment costs and enhance revenues. Second, drones and robots are being deployed for potentially hazardous or even routine cleaning and inspection jobs without shutting down operations. Images that are collected by these drones and robots are used to identify potential leaks and to provide early assessment of surface conditions, allowing early intervention before impact occurs. This is the case with the uncrewed aerial vehicles, or UAVs, that we use for collective inspections and general facility visual inspections. Also for robots that we use in inspection on water ballast tanks, on the FPSOs, and also that we use for underwater inspection in place of dry docking. In the last case, that's in case of dry docking, drivers can be replaced or reduced. The number of drivers can be reduced by using robots. This will minimize hazardous exposures to personnel, but also, add up to 50% of cost, as we've seen in some cases, when compared to when we use a full complement of drivers. Thirdly, 3D printing. And as we know, this builds a three-dimensional object from a digital model by additive manufacturing, which adds material layer by layer to create the object. 3D printing can significantly reduce maintenance costs and improve cycle time for delivery of equipment parts, which then minimizes disruption to production. It also helps improve inventory management by enabling just-in-time demand and delivery. In one example, offshore, 3D printing reduced cycle time from 3 months to less than 14 days. That's some 80% improvement. Fourthly, wearables, augmented reality remote assistant devices, which enable workers in the field to get assistance from experienced technicians, otherwise called mentors, or original equipment manufacturers, via a video link from anywhere in the world. These experts can see what the worker is saying, hear them clearly, and coach them in real time. Workers then have their hands free to perform steps on which they're being coached, in real time. So this both minimizes exposure, reduces travel costs, and get things done more quickly, real time. The last example I would like to talk on is the digital twin. And this is a virtual representation of the physical elements and dynamic behavior of an asset over its life cycle. And it provides real-time data and insights that enable decisions on inspection, maintenance, and repair. They enable risk-based inspection that make sure that we're only inspecting what is essential, and help us detect bad actors or potential failures very early. On the front end as well, the digital twin improves greenfield and brownfield design modifications by enabling scenario modeling, reducing on-site pre-design inspections, and all of this lead to lower cost for facility construction and modification. One thing you will notice with the examples I've given, which I think is probably typical from the studies I've seen, is that they're very post-FID operations bias, and that is that's what's been seen, that because that's where most of the revenue comes from. That's where we tend to have a lot of these initiatives, but there's a lot of potential in other aspects, in exploration and development, especially in in-field development and well intervention. So those are areas that I would encourage the panelists and the rest of this workshop to also think about, to see what more can we do in that space to further reduce, say, intervention costs, because a lot of us would not be able to do new drilling under the current circumstances, and locked-in potential is probably one area where we could derive more value if we could do things cheaper and more effectively. So in closing, digitalization and digital technologies are among the major global trends that are redefining our industry. We live in exciting, even if challenging and uncertain times that are full, of opportunity at the same time. To thrive in this dynamic world, we should consider responding to these and other mega forces in 3 ways, outlined above: by collaborating with others, building capability, and building win-win solutions with our customers. Finally, we must remember to keep it simple by always asking, where am I now? How good can I be? And what digital technology can help me from where I am to where I can be? So on that, I would like to thank you for listening and wish you fruitful deliberations over the next 2 days. Back to you, Alicia.
Okay, thank you so much, AR, for that powerful charge and keynote address. AR has given us the charge to look at the end-to-end view of the entire oil and gas value chain in the course of the panel discussion. He's taken us through what can be achieved from a strategic perspective, considering collaboration, capability, as well as a focus on customer centricity. Without going into the norm of summarizing the keynote address, I will leave that to the panelists to deliberate further on the points that AR has made. I would also employ our participants. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat box, and our panelists will definitely attend to those questions, of which ARO is also going to be part of our panelists. So thanks, ARO, the very first panelist, as well as our keynote speaker. So now introducing the rest of the panelists for this panel session. The next panelist is Betty Ugonna. Betty is a top management executive with over 30 years of experience in Nigeria's oil and gas industry, and has a proven track record and expertise in management of complex projects, whilst leading a multi-skilled team to deliver superior business performance. As a pioneer chief innovation officer of the Research Technology and Innovation Division of NNPC, she leads an agile and dynamic team to champion game-changing research, technology, and innovation to position NNPC as an energy company of global excellence and effectively achieve competitive edge across our entire energy value chain. She has a degree in industrial chemistry and graduate degrees in chemical engineering and business administration. She's a Goldman EI certified emotional intelligence coach. If you're familiar with Daniel Goleman, you would understand how obviously for her to be certified as emotional intelligence coach, that's quite impressive. Thank you for joining us, madam. It's good to have you. The very next panelist that will be welcoming today to the virtual stage is no other than Engineer Olanrewaju Ojo Aromokudu. He's currently the Drilling and Completions Advisor for Chevron Nigeria Limited, where he leads and supports the development and progression of the digital initiatives in his department. He is the point of contact for Chevron's digital transformation efforts, focusing on drilling and completion to ensure consistency, prioritization, and alignment year on year. He's a professional member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, also a member of COREN as well as SPE. He has chaired SPE monthly technical lectures as well as annual conferences. Engineer Olanrewaju is a multifaceted and dedicated petroleum engineer who has mentored and is still mentoring several emerging leaders, adding value to the field of engineering within Chevron as well as other organizations. He is also a graduate of petroleum engineering from the University of Benin. Thank you, sir, for joining us. The very next panelist that will be welcoming here is Engineer Afolabi Folorunsho. He is currently the General Manager, Western Asset for Seplat. Of course, Seplat is an indigenous oil and gas company, so it's good to have the diverse pool of panelists here today. Prior to his current role, he served as the GM of Corporate Production and Maintenance, where he pioneered the asset integrity business improvement work streams that addressed much of the business exposures associated with aging facilities in Seplat. Of course, he's a veteran in wells, reservoir facilities management prior to joining Seplat. He's received a BSc degree in chemical engineering from Obafemi Awolowo University, as well as a PDG in petroleum engineering from the Hertford University in Edinburgh. He has published several papers on various subjects and is a staunch member of SPE, COREN, as well as a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Thank you, sir, for joining us. It's good to have you. The very next panelist we have is Mr. Prince Abangu. He is the Division Manager of Schlumberger Digital and Integration for Nigeria and West Africa. He's also a principal petrophysicist and has over 15 years experience in the industry. He has worked in many countries across Africa and Europe. He's a member of SPE as well as a member of the Society of Petrophysicists and Well Log Analysts, and has held board and committee positions in these organizations. He's currently a member of SPE International Awards and Recognition Committee and has served as a chairperson within Cedric Ferguson subcommittee for the Petroleum Society of Petroleum Engineers. He has also authored and presented multiple technical papers in several international conferences. Thank you, Mr. Prince, for joining us. We have another panelist, Mr. Daniel Adeyemo. He is a digital transformation advisor with Microsoft and has worked with top-tier strategic customers in leading change programs that drive digital transformation. He works with Microsoft enterprise customers to maximize digital transformation engagements and accelerate business goals by helping them to realize their digital transformation visions. He's a veteran in information management, as he was the Deputy Chief Information Officer for the city of Houston in Texas, where he ran the strategy, budgets, and PMO divisions across 24 city departments. He started his career as a trading system engineer with companies like Cantor and IBM in UK. He has a BSc in computer science and mathematics from the University of London and an advanced mathematics and MBA from the University of Texas. It's good to have you, Mr. Ademo. Thanks for joining us. We have another panelist in the person of Mr. Anyekan Udo, who holds a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Port Harcourt, as well as an MBA from SUT Business School. He's worked also in the finance industry, where he served in various leadership capacities. His enthusiasm for process improvement, as well as interest in the value optimization in the energy sector, saw him joining Cypher Crescent as the technical sales lead and has since become the business development director of the company. He's passionate about driving awareness on digital transformation in the energy industry. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Udo. And the last but definitely not the least, our able moderator, Oladipo Ashafa, who is an oil and gas professional with over 15 years of upstream and midstream experience across the globe. He's currently the Global Digital Business Opportunity Manager for Shell. He's an alumnus of the University of Oklahoma, where he studied petroleum engineering, as well as a master's degree from the Herotua University. We've gotten about 2 panelists from the same school today. It's good to have you, Dipo. He's a professional member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers and has served in numerous capacities. He is passionate about the next generation's technical and behavioral development with an understandable bias for STEM. He's also a strong supporter of Nigeria's energy development ambition. Of course, he has some personal interests for those that are sports lovers, and he's also interested in music. It's good to have you, Dipo, and to our audience, you would see that we have seasoned panelists joining us today. We have over 100 years of experience in this virtual stage. So I will employ us to listen and come up with our questions that we can together take on our digital agenda for Nigeria and the oil industry at large to a greater height. So at this point, I hand over to you, Dipo. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Elise. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining this SPE Lagos Industry 4.0 discussion panel today. My name is Dipo Ashafa, and I stand on all existing protocols. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Abdurrahman Mijinyawa for an extremely insightful keynote address. So it's no secret that the world is changing. The COVID-19 pandemic plus the emergence of alternative sources of energy have created a downward pressure on the price of oil and gas. Well, today we have an exciting opportunity to discuss this with a panel of subject matter experts. We want to get into discussing how the oil and industry can thrive in this low oil regime, leveraging on technology enablers to realize a lower unit operating cost. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first question is about the role of technology in the oil and gas industry. And I'd like to ask this to Engineer Betty Ogona. So as the Chief Innovation Officer of the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation, you're at the forefront of enabling game-changing technology and introducing it into our industry. I'd like to get your insights on how this is going and what you see happening in 2021.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank the SPE for this wonderful forum, the able chair of Lagos chapter. I appreciate each and every one of us this morning. Thank you so much also, AR, as you're fondly known, for that wonderful keynote address. Now to the question, the role of technology in our oil and gas industry, and as a Chief Innovation Officer, NNPC, what we are doing or what we intend to do. Before I can answer that question, I want to just take us through the evolution of technology till the fourth revolution. We recall that in the 18th century, the discovery of steam engine led to the first industrial revolution, allowing the production to be mechanized for the first time, which led to social change as people became increasingly urbanized. And then the second industrial revolution that led to electricity and other scientific advancement that led to mass production. Then that takes us also to the third revolution beginning in 1950 that saw the emergence of computers and digital technology, which led to the increasing automation of manufacturing and disruption of industry, including banking, energy, and communications. Now, these industrial revolutions, we are able to make impacts. That is the first, second, and third, basically because of adoption of the changes that came with it, well, with them. Now, we are here on the fourth revolution, and this fourth revolution, which one can say is a fusion of advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, 3D printing, genetic engineering, and cloud computing. And the advantages of these technologies have already been explained explicitly by our keynote address presenter. Now, what is this technology, or the adoption of technology, has to do with oil and gas industry? Like our keynote address presenter said, looking at the complex nature of the supply chain of oil and gas industry, starting from exploration, where a team or group of people will go looking for or surveying intricate areas for sites to be drilled. Then that takes us to production, to be extracted, for the oil to be extracted from the earth, then to the refining of the products, and from the refining to market through pipeline transportation and other logistics involved, then to the markets, and then to the finally to the consumer. Then all these links, or each of the segments of the supply chain of oil and gas industry, entails a lot of or large infrastructure size, and these infrastructures throughout this portion of the supply chain is massive, and each of the segments has its own associated challenges and problems that must be taken care of. So access to remote areas, more than ever, every crevice of the globe is being explored for potential energy extraction. And this must be addressed and taken care of in order to ensure that efficiency in our operations are well deployed, while allowing for optimized strategies to be engaged. So what do we do as researchers in the industry, or as innovators in the industry? when we look at the benefits of deploying technology in every aspect of the industry, the benefits are overwhelming. We know that it will improve efficiency in the processes. It will reduce maintenance costs. It will also lead to reservoir improvement where companies increase reservoir through the use of digital automation technology. It will also lead to safety. With automations, workers will no longer have to go out to the field to make risky repairs. Workers can operate with drones to make needed repairs as well. So a lot of associated benefits are involved or appreciated when we deploy technologies in oil and gas industries. Time, error, and risk involved in human labors are completely erased. So the shift to automation is a matter of necessity. When the prices of oil fell below 75% over the years, the industries were forced to start looking inwards and outwards to ways to reduce cost of operation. Hence, we are forced to modernize, which has led us to automation. So a lot of things can be achieved remotely. Refineries can be operated remotely. Monitoring can also be done remotely. A lot of things can be achieved. So there is need for us to adopt technology in order to move forward, especially at a time like this when a lot of things are happening and forcing industry to look inwards to cut costs in their operations, create wealth, and also satisfy the bare needs of the consumers. So the future technological innovation will lead to supply side miracle with long-term gains in efficiency and productivity. Transportation and communication costs will drop drastically. Logistics and global supply chains will become more effective and the cost of trade will diminish, all of which will open new markets and drive economic growth. So let me stop here for now and
Now, thank you, Engineer Betty. Very well said. And I like the quote, the shift to automation is a necessity. Indeed, I believe it is. So I'd like to follow up with the same question to Engineer Afolabi. You're an asset manager, which is one of the most critical integration roles in our industry. Unlike most asset managers I know, you're most likely obsessed with safely maximizing production at the lowest possible cost. So do you agree that digital tools as smart technology are enablers, or do you see those as distractions for getting work?
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Let me share a slide with you, some slides with you while I answer the question or attempt to answer the question. Confirm you can see my slide.
Yes, I can see it.
All right. I think the first panelists actually have discussed a lot about this, but I just want us to understand why the answer will be no for many asset manager, general manager, or directors, especially in Africa. One of the major reasons is as a result of the survey that was actually carried out by PwC. And what they found out in that survey is that of over 200 companies that were evaluated, only under oil and gas, only 7% can be considered as digital champion, which means the company has a clear position in the marketplace with complex and tailored internal partner and customer solutions offered via multi-level digital interaction. Majority of the oil and gas companies, including Nigeria, actually sit within digital novice. This company has some isolated digital solution application, but this exists at the functional and departmental level within the organization. If I place my own company, Seplat, within this 4 hierarchy, we are basically going to be between digital innovator and digital followers to the level we have implemented, which probably we are ahead of many companies within the country, maybe with the exception of the IOC. But why is the industry behind generally? If you compare the oil and gas with the chemical industry, not even talk about the IT industry, those are far, far, far away. Why are we followers generally? Is the main reason why the answer could be no for many asset managers. And the key reasons are more like into 4 different loops. Number 1, we have headwinds that are basically terrorizing us as a group. The headwinds is that the world is demanding for a green world. So the cash cow, which is the oil that we depend on, is under threat. As a matter of fact, if you don't sell it on time, we may end up selling it at a negative price. We have to cut down waste. The price of food is dropping, not only because of pandemic, generally because of the need to actually make the environment green, and the advancement in technology that we are not catching up with, which is the vehicle, electric vehicle of the world, renewable energy, increasing in a geometrical form, while we are crawling in an arithmetic form. And this is made worse by the sudden emergence of pandemic, which has led to several bans on travel. Remote working is more like forced. And because we are slow to respond to the value of Industry 4.0, it's been difficult for us to actually benefit like the IT world, like the Apple of this world, the Amazon of this world. And it's obvious where we are slow, because when you are faced with all these headwinds, as an ordinary person who does not have information or the appropriate information or the right knowledge of the value that digital technology can offer you, the next thing you do is to cut off any budget tied to technology, because you cannot see the immediate contribution to your bottom line. The impact in your revenue, you can see. But obviously, from the general study, digitalization or Industry 4.0 awareness and implementation of all the tools tied to it will give us 10% increase in revenue in totality and 8.5% increase or decrease in our operating costs. But these are long-term impact. So our short-term view has prevented us from significantly benefiting from the value that this new world has offered us. The Z generation, or the Z nation as they call them, are moving faster than the oil and gas. And the earlier we wake up to it, the better. So if you ask me, because now I'm knowledgeable, I can tell you that the answer is yes, because I've applied it and I've seen the value. Some of the value we share in the course of discussion. But as so many people are sitting out there that the first thing they do when it comes to cost cutting is to regret everything that has to do with new technology, whether proven or not proven. To them, it's a bottleneck. And it's made worse if your organization culture is managed by hierarchy, because there are different forms of organization culture. If it's hierarchy, it means you are managed by protocol and procedure and process. So the technology cannot be implemented until the topmost person bought the idea. Unfortunately, most people at the top are probably the H people who are reluctant to change, who are probably preparing for retirement. So openness to new ideas is not easily welcome. So if you sit in that hierarchy-dominated culture organization, new ideas can easily sell. But if you are sitting in an organization like Apple, that is, technology or idiocracy driven, where a new inflow or a new engineer can bring in an idea using 3D printing to create a new format for iPhone, and the idea is bought over immediately. You can move faster and apply a new idea and think creatively and be able to adapt to the changing environment. But if you are driven by KPI like you have in most oil and gas, you're under competition. You don't have the benefit of trying new technology. So at overall, if we are going to be efficient as oil and gas, we need to do a total rethinking. We need to start rethinking in terms of strategy, in terms of how we operate, in terms of how we train our people. Because before you can create an organization that is creative, looking at new idea, you must be able to create a culture that will enable those new hire to think in an inventive way. So our hiring methodology, the way we invest, the way we operate, the way we prioritize, all has to be, altered to suit the current world. Otherwise, the Z nation in which we are will eventually take us over, and what we operate will be at the bottom of the desire. Because at a point, we get to a point that people will prefer to use ordinary electric car than to even think of processing crude as a whole. So it's high time the oil and gas wake up and begin to think deeper and take advantage of the value that this new technology is bringing to table for us. So there's so many things I like to say, but let me keep it simple for now. As we begin to talk, I'll begin to release some of the crucial things that we need to really remember. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Engineer Afolabi, for that mini presentation. I appreciate the response. So I want to pivot quickly to a second question. This is about data analytics, and I'll direct this to Mr. Larry. Many would say that the drilling discipline was an early embracer of data analytics, leveraging insights to drive improved drilling and well performance. Do you agree? And if so, can you tell me what role technology can play in safely delivering wells ahead of schedule and under budget?
All right. Thank you very much, Dikwa Shafar, for that question. Please confirm, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very good. So good morning, co-panelists and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I also stand on existing protocol, and I appreciate AR for his keynote address. As you know, unfortunately, he has addressed some of the things I was going to say regarding data analytics. Drilling and completion, by the way, the question referred to drilling. We always say drilling and completion because of completion brothers and brethren always say we always negate them. So drilling and completions. So drilling and completions utilize data in everything we do, both from planning and execution of our wells. Data gathered over time is used in the analysis of performance of our wells year in, year out, both for direct activities and the indirect ones. Like we say in the industry, whatever gets measured gets done. In delivering of our wells, I'd like to speak on some specific topics. I'd like to start from the planning. The use of one cloud-based ecosystem that will incorporate the entire well planning workflow, from review of offset well information to developing earth models, which will be incorporated into well design. This will produce the work program which will be used in the field form of checklist. This process will reduce a lot of engineering rework and eliminate a lot of errors using data from multiple sources. It will also bring a lot of efficiency from applications that are integrated and foster more collaboration amongst the project teams. As we see now, these days, we have collaboration amongst the project team, drilling and completion engineers, reservoir engineers, G&G specialists, IT, and the list goes on. From planning, I'll move on to execution. Excuse me. There are several tools that will enable various activities to be measured, like trip times, connection times, nipple ups and nipple downs. With proper data aggregation, it will lead to faster decisions and efficient operations overall. There is also the coordination with remote operating centers, where data is streamed live to their centers, and this provides additional operational support to the rig operations. If you remember, there was an incident that happened in the Gulf of Mexico a few years ago, the Macondo incident. Some have even said that if there was live data that was streamed to a remote operating center, perhaps that incident will have been averted, because several other people will have seen from the data analytics that there was an event that was about to happen, and probably would have called the attention of the operators who were on the rig at that time. So we'll see a lot of that. AR also talked about predictive analytics with the use of machine learning for proactive maintenance of major equipment on our rigs, like generators, cranes, etc. A lot of this provides us, because everything we do on the rig costs money and costs time. And with reduction and proactive maintenance of major equipment, it will lead to less downtime and, of course, lower cost. We also see the wearables for remote support, especially when troubleshooting tools and during emergency situation. Some of our service providers have even started doing this, and even some of the IOCs as well. With this, we're able, again, to provide on-the-spot assessment, proactive maintenance and troubleshooting, and then with the experts that are able to see exactly what is going on site, they are able to provide the necessary solutions very quickly. From that, I also moved to the efficient use of equipment. Like we know, and I think Ms. Betty also mentioned this, technology plays a major role in the deployment and the use of monitoring of our equipment from when they are being used to when they are being deployed and on standby. Similar thing also exists with our supply vessels, helicopters, where all these resources can be centrally managed, and then request comes in and they are managed centrally. In terms of safety, I'm saying this lastly, but not because it's last, but because so that we can keep this at the forefront of our minds. So in terms of safety operations, technology is also available that we can automatically measure and track our safety metrics from a single source of record. This process alone has proven to eliminate a lot of man hours and increase real-time focus, as our safety personnel don't have to stay in the office generating data from time to time, but they are also able to do a lot of on-site analysis, engaging the personnel on the rig, and also focus on what is going on. So overall, I believe the key is having our IOCs and NOCs collaborate, share data in an open source form. This is where the big gains are. In the oil and gas industry, we're just scratching the surface. There is ample opportunity for us when we begin to collaborate as an industry and begin to share information. And I think this has already begun with the open source data universe, OSDU, which is a conglomerate of companies that have come together and have agreed to begin to share the data in a way and format that is organized and can be accessed for various things. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Larry, and my sincere apologies to my brothers and sisters in completion. As a former drilling engineering trainee, I should know better. Now, before I proceed, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to please turn and keep your cameras running. Our audience would like to continue to see your beautiful faces. Thank you. Now, let me follow up with Mr. Prince. You started your career as a petrophysicist and transitioned into digital within Schlumberger. So I bet you have an interesting perspective on how technology changes the way we acquire, store, and process data.
Thanks. Thank you, Larry, and very good. Deepo, and very good morning, everyone. I will lean on existing protocols, and I want to as well give kudos to SPE. You know, SPE has always been leaders in driving technology across all the sectors of the industry. So having this fora where we'll be taking a deep dive into how technology can help us on the pursuit for lowering unit operating cost becomes a very, very critical part of the entire process. And indeed, thank you, AR, for the laying a very good keynote that we can all build upon. Great to see you mentioning quite some of the very important advances that we've seen. And when it comes to data, you very well hinged on the need to collaborate with the advances and the efforts we see around the open source data universe, which is indeed the way to go. So really talking about that transition from a technical person to someone who is now focusing on digital and the efficiencies that digital can bring to what we do in the industry. I would want to just share a very personal story. In the year 2007, while drilling operations started off in Ghana, at that time I was working as a petrophysicist, and we had one of the acquisitions then that was new, and that acquisition, the volume of data that comes with the tool, it's such that it's in gigabytes. So the challenge was we need fast decisions from these measurements in order to take the next decision on the well operations. How do we get this data? It's in gigabyte. We didn't have the capacity to transmit in real time data at that time in gigabytes. So I had to fly just to interpret and process and interpret this data. I had to fly. Then I was in Port Harcourt, from Port Harcourt to Lagos, from Lagos to Accra. From Accra, I took a chopper to Takoradi. Just imagine the trips the exposure, safety-wise, the cost. And I'm sharing this example because I think it was 2 weeks ago. Last week, we saw a presentation from GGM of NAPIMS, and we see that 38% of contributing to the unit operating costs we have today is from human resources, and another, I think, about 15% thereabout. So it's from logistics. Now we see close to 70% of unit operating costs. It's just about people and moving things around. So, but today, how has technology changed, and how do we really see value of technology in the way we acquire data, the way we store, the way we process? Things have really changed in the last decade, and I can say that why the technology exists today. I think it was Engineer Afolabi that also mentioned that the culture and our ability to really embrace the technology, we are still very much behind in the sense that when there is a downturn, the first thing to cut is technology, because we believe we can always do it the old way, the traditional way. Whereas as a people, we should be more upfront in thinking and changing our mindset and our culture on how we should be embracing and putting technology at the forefront so we can see the long-term value. Now, being a bit more specific on acquisition, Larry did talk about how things have evolved in drilling and completions, how robotics, how artificial intelligence has coming to really help the way we acquire data today and the way we have operations in the rig. Now those are really fast advancing. We are sort of tending to where we would be having rig that will operate with minimal human intervention, and when there is minimal human intervention, you have gains on efficiency, gains on safety, because you don't need people to be physically on the well site for everything. You also have quite some significant cost saving, because people do make mistakes when fatigued. But with these machines and robots and all the technology that we have out there, you can be more efficient in the way data it's acquired, and the time savings as well. It's something we cannot effectively quantify today, because the gains, in the days of big deep water market, you had rigs that were $1.5 million per day, and for every operation, time becomes very critical. So using technology gives us the ability to really achieve efficiency and cut excesses in cost, because we are able to do things faster. Now, in terms of storage of data, the keynote presentation from AR touched on the essence of having some investment in cloud, not just public cloud, but as well private cloud. Today, and I think we can all learn from the fact that if everyone begins to buy their piece of storage, infrastructure, buying gigabytes or terabytes of servers, we will all be spending, individually or as separate entities. But if we can come together from a collaborative standpoint, of course, with the support of the government, invest in maybe an in-country cloud, for example, where we will build a cloud infrastructure within the country. All the operators and, of course, service providers can have secured space within those cloud infrastructures. It costs it will cut quite a lot of spending that we see from individual companies. So that's just one way. And then if we want to now process this data, honestly, in processing today, time that we use to individually process data can be cut significantly from various technology that we have today. And some instances that we've seen, we have huge volumes of seismic, and I can tell you that we have seen the use of technology today where 13 months processing time has been cut down to 2.5 months. That is significant. You can imagine how much cost savings that would have put on the table of the operator. In processes like well intervention, candidate screening, and selection of the various wells that will be qualified for workovers or re-entry, we see over 80% reduction in time that this has been previously done by existing technology. So that we are in a downturn is a more compelling reason for us to start looking in depth. And I think a couple of things that can be done by the industry is, one, taking a step back and doing some analysis. Analysis like asking ourselves, what can be quick wins that will be of benefit to us as an industry? Starting from a company of scale. Every company has its scale, has its objectives. The company, and this can only be done if there is a responsibility, if it's someone's responsibility. I think it was General Afolabi as well that mentioned that many companies today talk about digital. They talk about technology, but are they really doing it? No. What we see is that 3 to 5% of companies have today an office that carries the responsibility to drive technology and digital advancement. But every CEO, every management staff will talk about it. But then who is responsible? Only about 5% in the entire industry. So that means we need to have some level of commitment and responsibility, and there needs to be someone accountable. So the accountability in that person's office would drive the enforcement of some of these things that we'll talk about here today. Otherwise, it's just a narrative without any action. So from that standpoint, then companies can begin to take a step back, depending on their own scale, begin to look at how they can reduce various processes that they have today. Is it reducing trips for monitoring? You don't need to monitor everything physically. You don't need to embark on trips to go monitor. There's Internet of Things, production, drilling, everything can be monitored with the Internet of Things. Repetitive tasks can be eliminated by use of machine learning. The technology is there. Human intervention and dependence on people can be reduced by robotics and automation. There, people will be safer, things can be done faster. And it will also behoove that person's office, whatever his portfolio is called, technology officer, digital officer, whatever it is, that person will now carry the responsibility of evaluating opportunities for engagement, because again, the mindset is once we bring in machine learning, robotics, Internet of Things, people won't have work to do. That's not true. People should be able to now, channel their efforts and their time to other aspects that will be of benefit to their respective companies. And again, I maintain and I reemphasize that this is a function of the scale of the company. So someone must, from that strategic viewpoint, be able to look at what scale is my company is and what are the technologies that can be of benefit to my company today as it applies to the overall workflow of that company. And in that way, we will be able to really begin to see the value and the efficiency gains that technology can drive within our industry. And before I just pass it on deeper, I want to mention that, and this was as well mentioned by during the keynote speaker speech by AR. He did talk about the importance of having startups. But I think this is where we should really work collaboratively as an industry and as a country. We have bright minds, we have people today who are super good in developing research and innovative, whatever we call it, technology plugins. This is the time for the country to create a platform. There are various platforms here and there, but we need to be more deliberate and more, focus on what we want to achieve. Pulling more and more people into that space, into that platform, will help us drive homegrown solutions and innovative solutions very fast and begin to see those work within our industry. We have the people, we need to believe them, and to believe them, we need to give them a platform to showcase what they can do. I'll pass it on now deeper for others.
Thank you, Mr. Prince. Very eloquent points. Before we switch on to the next topic, I'd like to come to Engineer Afolabi for his views. I think it aligns with some of the things that you spoke about much earlier.
All right, thank you very much. And all the contribution actually has been quite insightful. And what I just need to also highlight is the value I have seen as an asset GM, and why I think we need to just understand the culture of an oil and gas structure. We are not idiocracy or technology-driven organization. An average oil and gas company is either dominated by hierarchy, as you have in MPDC, a government, or a clan family like my in Seplat, or KPI-driven like company like maybe the IOC as it is. So to really drive home technology in an efficient way, you need to have a dedicated team, or especially a lead that actually have an overview of the customer need, which is basically the entire company workflow, and therefore could drive the right technology that actually benefit to each of the users. So to actually have a resourceful digital implementation, like I have seen in my own company, there is need for ownership from the top level. Ownership for the top level. Once there is ownership from the top level, for example, in Seplat, every director actually is a sponsor of technology. From the TD to the OD, even to the CEO, they actually responsible for defining the strategy that will lead to implementation of the technology at hard value to the company. And every single GM actually carried that as part of his KPI, and that is also transferred down to the N-1, N-2, to the average person in Seplat is charged with the desire to actually bring in innovation, to become creative in thinking and looking at how do I reduce the time we spend on process, how do I save costs at the same time not undermining quality, how do I ensure that people are safe in terms of HSE at the same time improving on the process of reporting. Now, how do I actually increase the balance sheet of the company and respecting health and environment and compliance to the regulator? So they are motivated to that extent. In that situation, you have a culture that can bring in a solution to anything you implement or anything you introduce. So without that, even though if you are driving from top, if it's not in the DNA, it will be difficult to have success. It will be a pocket of ideas that are disjointed here and there. So the ownership must be driven down from top to the bottom. And it's good to understand that technology is not going to be a big bang that you implement. It's a journey. So if it's a journey, it means we need to see that at a point to have a framing of what we want to do as a company, and do a kind of vision that also encompasses or that embrace new ideas. At the same time, have a mission to support our vision. We now do a strategy in way that we are going to be able to implement the technology. That way, everybody from top understand this is the way the company is going. The company recognizes the value of new idea and they are ready to implement it. So one other thing is, like we have in CEPLAT, we define the status. Where are we currently? Because you don't just go and bring ideas and implement. First of all, where are you? You map. Where are the gaps? You define the gap and you design a journey to close the gap. Once you have a journey, you begin to follow your journey and you begin to implement. That way you can reevaluate your journey yearly and see how you are doing. You can review your budget as challenges come and see how you are doing. That way nothing falls short. And at the end, you will move from just a novice to an innovator, also to a digital champion, as the case may be, that have value in digital technology. And those values are so immense. For example, in our field, first of all, when we wanted to implement the value of big data and also remote management, we had issue in all the remote locations like Orogo, Oporu. These are distance locations. The Fulani apps here, they are terrorizing the people. It's a distance from the main flow station, and people have to drive miles before they can look at where head get that data. So we started by installing sensors in all the remote locations. We install sensors such that we can see all the tubing air pressure, casing pressure, all the parameters online in our palms, in the office, and even as you are working in your smartphone. That way you can quickly respond to challenges to where. So what does that do to us? It reduces the number of people that have to go to where, and it reduces our exposure to danger in that place. And if you look at it in terms of economy, it means that I spend lesser money on diesel, I spend lesser money even on people that I need to actually man the facility. And if I already have people in that facility, it means that I cannot use that same people to learn how to manage the software, how to optimize the entire process, to be able to add more value to it. Now, we didn't stop at that point. As I said, it's a roadmap. We now took those data and plugged them using the Internet of this world and the MEC into the software that they call CEPLAT virtual management system. What does that do? It takes the data, the big data in the cloud, analyze it, and plot it on a daily basis to see how the well is performing. It takes information on temperature. You can see how your gas well is performing. When you see temperature change, you know maybe you're having water problem or one thing or the other. When the pressure flattens, you can see maybe there's a tampering on the well or the well has shrink. So in the office in Lagos, in the field, you could respond to changes in the well immediately. So some of the wells that are having wells, we can see the earlier initiation of the wells and be able to proactively react. So that has saved a lot of operating costs. But if you are not looking globally, you will think the cost, initial cost, will be such that it will make your balance sheet negative. But if you look at the long-term impact, you will see that the benefit actually outweigh the initial cost. Now we have gone further from that. We will now be able to integrate everything within the gas plant, the way the gas plant is, using the 3D printing, so you could see the gas plant as it is, even in your office. You could actually maneuver and control the valves in the gas plant from the OC with a simple software. So it's a migration and it's a journey. And until we understand that it's a journey, sometimes it might be difficult to start. For me, let's start from where everybody starts. We have management that understand and is willing to embrace change. Second, we are aware that we need data and we need to harness data. We need to gather data. Without data, you cannot make good use of all these tools. And we are aware that we need capability. We need to bring in people who have experience. I'm not saying go to Amazon or eBay and bring people. People who have knowledge relevant to the oil and gas and how this technology actually involved and can be introduced to the oil and gas. And we need people who can train our people, who are adaptive and become useful to be able to add value in terms of technology. We need to have governance and process in place to ensure that things that we have agreed to is not altered by a new journal. And we need to be able to adapt to the operating envelope that will enable all these tools to function for us, meaning that we need to also prepare a budget. And lastly, that aspect of agile culture is important. A culture that empower people to bring in idea, to be able to implement idea without being terrorized or punished when the idea fails. Meaning that we need to have a culture that embrace failure and see failure as a step to learn how not to do things, rather than something that we use to punish somebody because he has tried, he has failed, and it become an enigma against the person. So we need to actually change our culture as a company. That way we can move forward aggressively. Just to keep it short, there are other things we have done that actually have impacted positively on our unit OPEX. Unit OPEX last year was around 9, but this year is as low as 8 point something. So it's gradually going down as we begin to expand the scope of this digital world. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Afolabi. Great and salient points. There's a lot to unpack there, but from what I can see, sometimes these panel sessions are more about the theory, but you're showing how the rubber meets the road and how and injecting some practicality. A few things I take away from this is, technology requires leadership involvement. It needs to be embedded in the DNA of the organization, and there needs to be a vision, strategy, and roadmap. Excellent stuff. So, I mean, this is a perfect point to segue into the external perspective, right? So we have Mr. Daniel from Microsoft. You're on the outside looking in. So how does the oil and gas industry benchmark versus others? Would you say we're ahead of other industries? Are we behind, or are we just average? Over to you.
Thank you. So the benchmark, I would say definitely behind, just based on the experience of talking to customers across various industries. So when you compare to, for example, the financial services sector or manufacturing, etc., they are more advanced in terms of adoption of technologies. But there's a reason for that. I think the one thing that we should remember is that the oil and gas sector has a lot of infrastructure that is expensive, complex, and quite often very old. And that's different from what you see in a lot of these other environments. So the reasons why it stays behind, I think, are many. And I know that there's been a lot of conversation around what to do to be more advanced and everything else. But I think Engineer Afolabi had a point earlier on in the conversation, which is around what drives digital transformation. Right? When you think about that from that angle, it's competition in most other industries. It is to an extent as well in the oil and gas industry, but it varies by region, in my experience, right? So in Nigeria, it's obviously government owned. You have your IOCs, etc. So the motivation for change is a little different from the banks or from the manufacturers, who are seeing more intense competition, right? And they are being driven to that change by that competition. That's the one thing that I'll see. All of the comments that I've heard about what drives transformation is correct. Certainly leadership is the key thing. Vision is very important. For oil and gas, one of the conversations that we've started having with some of the organizations in the Middle East, who are, I guess, thinking further ahead, 20 years ahead, 30 years ahead. And the conversations we're having more recently is around, in 20 years' time, the relevance for the industry will be different, right? We've talked about alternative energies, solar energy, electric cars, etc. A lot of that will be more prevalent and is being driven in that direction. So those organizations are already starting to pivot their digital transformation towards looking at ways to be relevant for that market in 20 years' time. So they're running IT projects or digital transformation projects today to address what's going to happen in 20 years. A lot of the things that I see that's happening within certainly Nigeria and the region more locally is what we tend to call modernization, right? And not necessarily digital transformation or innovation. And modernization means, yes, I am improving my processes. Yes, I am establishing a data environment. Yes, I'm moving my data to the cloud and I'm trying to leverage the cloud to make things better, faster, safer. But that is all modernization. In digital transformation, the difference there is that with digital transformation, you're changing your business model, right? You're looking at, okay, what's going to happen? What are the business outcomes down the line? And how can I make sure that I get there? And all of those things that we really talked about earlier are really important. So when it comes to culture, that's probably, we see as the biggest thing that really impedes digital transformation. And I can't stress that enough. Culture is very, very important because you can always apply technology to make changes, but you really need to drive that cultural adoption within your organization and your ecosystem of partners, distributors, suppliers, etc. So all of these things are important. I'll stop there for a minute just to allow more conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. And I'd like to follow up with Mr. Ani. Cypher Crescent is an emerging force in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. As a relative newcomer in the industry, I'd like to get your take on the industry's readiness for Industry 4.0. We've heard the views from Mr. Daniel, look at from an external perspective, looking in. But you've been on the outside, now you're on the inside. What are your reflections and what are your thoughts to accelerate this journey?
Yeah, thank you very much. We really wish to appreciate SPE for coming on with this forum. And thank you, Mr. AR, for a very insightful opening presentation. And I think I'm fortunate to be probably maybe speaking after so many persons have spoken. I would like to integrate all they've done. And I would like to start with the fact that, while a lot of persons in the industry seem to have just realized, the need for a digital transformation, I think it was actually the motivation behind we coming up with Cypher Crescent about 8 years ago. And it was a conscious realization. The motivation was we saw a lot of things. You put up what we call, we have a model for competitiveness and efficiency. And we saw the efficiency of the E&P industry declining in years to come. And when we came on board, the reception, I would like to say, was not there. But it's a model that we're already seeing because the industry was largely manual in a way. The industry was routinely manual. But we saw something. We knew something was about to hit us. We did not see the pandemic. We learned from history. For example, I'm sure you may have heard of the classical topic of marketing myopia. It's a classic example case study in Harvard. You could remember maybe our industries like the Nigerian Airways, our coal industry. We are there today. You have these big industries who are always very comfortable. You never believe something can go wrong. You never see the changes coming, and you're tying a conveyor belt. It sweeps you off. So we saw all that. As somebody would say, if you look at a popular quote by Winston Churchill, who said the industry or the empire of the future is the empire of the mind. So like widely said here, digital transformation is not a destination, it's a journey. It has to be driven into our DNA, it has to be a culture. So we observed a few things, and this was even when the oil price was about 70, 80 and all that. But we saw it coming. If you look at across the world, industries were being, the landscape of a lot of industries were being shaped and reshaped. Business models were being jigged up, and digitalization had a lot of role. Then, interestingly, in the E&P industry, as you may have also seen, anytime we really want to, any organization want to cut down costs, one of the first ways to go is reduce cost of technology, because we are myopic. We're not seeing the future. We're not seeing the big picture. we are such a bit concerned with the immediate impact, not knowing that we are killing the future. So when we came together, we identified a few areas that are contributing to wastages, to unnecessary costs, like the very high manpower. If you pay a consultant or any company to a contractor to do a job for you, most of our jobs are based on manpower. That is to also tell us that internally, we spend a lot of money, a lot of resources on manpower. How many times, how much time is a team or an individual committing to do a particular activity? And is that the best? You have failed intervention or interventions that do not conform to programs or to proposals. If you keep doing an intervention, and everything tells you my proposal is good, my program is good, but how robust was your analysis? Every company in Nigeria today, is sitting on what we call a gold mine of data. We saw that, but how much are we making from this data? How much am I understanding my assets from my data? What am I doing to my data? So at Cypher Crescent, we came up with something like in every industry, you have what you call maybe the traditional factors of production, where everybody thinks the labor, the capital, the land, I have the well, I have my people, I have my permits, I have my acreages. We say, no, if you want to succeed in the business of today, if you want to remain competitive, you must retweak, you must recognize two other factors of production that are very critical. They are not just emerging, they are there. But in the ERP industry, most persons are yet to recognize this: data and digital technology. These are inevitable factors of production that has to be built into the business model of every organization today. If you don't build that in, you are building a pathway to your extinction. Mr. Daniel from Microsoft, I heard the way they said, you are looking from outside. No, part of the problem is that we continue to see data science, digitalization as something external that has to be brought into the ERP industry. We must begin to recognize digital transformation as an integral part of ERP systems. So when you have your reservoir engineer, you have your production technologies, your GG experts and all that, every organization must begin to consider having your data scientists. So missed opportunities, you have a lot of persons, you need, like somebody mentioned here, cost of logistics. How many people do you need to transport to a particular site to monitor your operations, to monitor your wellhead, to take data and all that. Now, how do you store your data? As you produce, your data become very big, terabytes, so much. So you need to expand your facilities to store them. You begin to bother about what are your digital resilience. What if you have a breakdown? What if your system collapses? How do you recover? So these are all huge costs. But today you have systems that are free. You have things like platform as a service, you have facilities as a service where you don't need to bother about that. So you give that out, and you don't need to think about expanding your facilities. Even your security is triple time, more than triple time in short. So these are what we are bringing in the industry. And recently, for all of us in Nigeria and across the world, we may have been aware of the initiative by Cypher Crescent. We got in partnership with IDSL and Huawei Technologies. So what we are doing is the same thing. That's why I'm very happy that SPE is also swinging in. So we are creating a sensitization program. It's been it started since August, and it's going to round up. For next year, we create something else. So we recognize, like Mr. Afolabi rightly said, that there are key enablers, key operands to ensuring a very efficient digital transformation. Your data, we know it's very important. It cannot be overemphasized. Your processes, we are a bit, there's an inertia, we're a bit slow to change. But the processes that you have, is that the optimal process? Have you taken time to do a process audit? Are you sure what you've done in 10 hours cannot be done in 10 minutes? Are you sure? What technologies are you deploying? Or are you just jumping into technology because it's the in thing now? Have you taken time to assess your technology? Have you done that quite well? Then your people, who are the primary people driving all the processes? What is the level of digital competence of your people? What is the culture that you've embedded into your organization? Are you still looking at digital as something like, maybe I need to smile about, nice to get? Or have you sunk your people in the concept and culture of digital? and your operation, your organizational policies. What are your organizational policies? Do you get so mad at the guy who attempts to innovate and makes mistakes? What are your policies like? Do they drive innovation? Or are they such that you want to knock off technology because you want to save costs? You know, it's like saying, I'm not going to buy money. That's exactly what we're doing there. So what have we done in that aspect? So we came up and we found out also one of the problems is the silo working of the ERP industry. You have the reservoir guy who may see an opportunity, says, oh, this reservoir can do as much as this. You have the production technologists who believes he's well, he can optimize his well, he might be up and do that. The facility guy says, no, you can't do that. So we have people working in silos. So we said there is a need for us to integrate the industry. So we did not just integrate people. We did what we call integration of interpretations, where we put all the data from all the disciplines. We now say we are going to evaluate it, assess it, audit it, and eliminate all what we call logical inconsistencies, because we are working to optimize a single production system. And if I see an opportunity, it should be seen by everybody. If I see a threat to my well integrity, it should be seen by everybody, and it should be real. So what systems have I put in to ensure that I have what I call predictive maintenance or proactive surveillance, exception-based surveillance? I may forget to carry out a maintenance. Do I have that system that can prompt me? So we develop solutions that thrive on data analytics, machine learning, and we also come up with there's a novel service we call data democratization. Like maybe a top management person, you're in Houston in Abuja. Can you from there see the status of your well? Do you know what your well is doing? Do you know how you're managing your deferments? Are you reactive? So we came up with a model that we call asset management digitalization model. So from that model, we broke down the Nigerian the oil and gas industry globally into what we call the informal. You have the informal E&P, and you have their characteristics, they are unstructured, they are ad hoc, they are reactive and subjective. You have the functional. The functional system of E&P industry, they are structured quite all right, but they are still working discretely. And you find out their operations are still very tedious. Then you migrate into what we call the democratized, where you begin to integrate functions, data, interpretations. You improve collaboration, and it makes it auditable. Your actions are repeatable. Routine tasks could be, imagine telling a guy to give you all your opportunities. Maybe you have 600 wells in an organization. I say, I want to see all my behind car opportunities. You give that guy a 3-week work. But if you have a kind of an integrated system that we've created for the industry, with a click of a button, in 2 minutes, you have that report. And you take your decision, and you are very sure you're efficient. You begin to have the analytic-driven industry, which you are driving without make no sense. So we now think of the future of the ERP industry is what we call the adaptive. We are beginning to build companies to become heuristic, predictive, intelligent, and data-driven.
Thank you.
So you call efficiency amplification from all levels. So that's what we. I would like to
Mr. Annie, it looks
put
it
a
looks like
pause,
the
and
connection's
it's an
breaking
interesting
up a little bit.
what we call the transform. It's actually hinged on this. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you. We heard most of it, but I think I lost the last 5-10 seconds. But no, excellent points about how we work and collaborate with the external market. We don't have to develop everything ourselves internally. It can be a back and forth. All right. Now, thank you for your response, and also thank you to Mr. Daniel. That's interesting. It's interesting how you and other colleagues cross industry look to the oil and gas industry and see how our practices are benchmarked. Now, I want to switch space to supply chain, right? Because as Mr. Prince mentioned, roughly about 15% of our OPEX is supply chain related. So before we get into that question, maybe Mr. Prince, if you want to say a little bit more about this, and maybe tie back to the comments made by Mr. Daniel and Annie and then we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, thanks, Deepo. Really, we are in an industry that is so supply chain dependent, right? And being supply chain dependent, it's also due to the fact that we have to move lots of equipment around. We have to we have to, and some of this equipment in such manner that they are not things that you just put in a plane. You need some very structured process of shipment, of export, of import. So all those processes we have largely, manually done over the years. And the question then would be, are there things that we can, one, digitize? Number two, are there opportunities for collaboration? In which case we can get into a pool where we all know what we need, and we will, collaboratively import or ship stuff that can be shared amongst our various stakeholders. So that's one very important aspect. And having, I looked again on that statistics presented by GGM of Nappings, Mr. Balamunti last in a previous conference. It's about 19% to logistics, HR services about 38%, and then handling services about 13%. So those three pillars all make up 70% of UOC. So that's very significant. So that opens the door for questions like, should we all be doing stuff independently? I think there's quite a lot of room for collaboration. And then are there aspects of all these that can be digitized? And the answer is yes. And most of the panelists have also made comments on that. Now, talking about digital transformation, there's one very critical aspect that I think have not been mentioned. Disruption is part of the journey to technology adoption. You have to be ready to change the way you do things. The culture has to be broken, and this is where we struggle in the industry. We all want to do it the same way. That shift in our cultural mindset needs to happen, and the way it happens is that it has to be disruptive for it to work. For example, when COVID came, COVID was a disruption in the overall system in the overall way that we were working. Everything changed. There was a question someone posed in another conference, which I was part of, and he asked the managers present, he said, in 2019, maybe middle of 2019, your employee walks up to you and say, I want to work 3 months from home. Will you accept it? We know the answer is hell no. But the disruption COVID brought made us to quickly accelerate our adoption of digital platforms, virtual platforms to work. So that completely changed the scenario. So before we can really get the value of or the benefits of optimization from digital, from technology adoption, we must disrupt. And for you to go through that journey from identifying your enablers from digital and technology to designing a strategy and finally to executing that strategy, you need to work with a partner. You need an external partner. And that is one thing that is missing. Companies that have successfully gone through digital evolution, technology evolution, have always gone with a partner. And this is because if you want to do it, I mean, even if from the standpoint of someone that you are sick, you need an external intervention. You need a medical practitioner to prescribe something, to first examine, bring up a diagnosis, and then give you what we consider a medication. So we need to look, where does the partnership exist? Who is the external partner that I can work with? Because you cannot really fix certain mindset within your colleagues. Someone would need to tell this from an external lens. Someone will need to look at it from an external viewpoint to really identify where the issues are, where the bottlenecks are, to break egos, to break habits, to break things that we have held on to over time. So that is very critical. So that point, and then the need for us to look critically on digital enablers in our supply chain process, and most importantly, collaboration, partnerships, for us to know and for us to leverage our needs. Today we see Uber. Uber is a very good example, or Taxify, whatever we call it. In that market, we can see the value of collaborating. From pooling resources, you save cost. I'll pass it on, Deepo.
No, thank you, Mr. Prince. I mean, interesting way you've taken the conversation. So, just want to ask and direct this to Mr. Larry. In view of the large impact of supply chain, I mean, what are your views on how else technology can help, and perhaps also taking a look at the portfolio of vendors? Yeah. Are we ripe for the Microsofts and the Google and Amazon to come in, or is this, in your view, do you see the traditional service providers such as Schlumberger, Halliburton being able to get us where we need to be?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. First of all, I'm going to depart a little bit from my normal conversation here and speak more directly. I like what Daniel mentioned with regards to modernization and all of that. I believe that within the industry, oil and gas industry, which I've been fortunate to be for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of transitioning in technology. Personally, I believe that when it comes to digital transformation, we're slow learners, and we're way behind the 8 ball, like we always say. We have a lot to learn from the likes of Microsoft, Google, Amazon. Those organizations are miles apart. Now, talking about supply chain, I give us a very simple example of how to break barriers. And I'm glad in a way for COVID, because COVID has helped to reshape the minds of people. I'll give you a practical example. About this time last year, I was in my office and I saw a lady walk by, and she said she was going to get the signature of the manager on a document. And I said, wow, are we still doing this, passing paper? The technology is available with DocuSign to be able to handle something like this. Some people were reluctant in accepting this, but then COVID has come, everybody is working from home, and the documents need to be signed. And voila, people accepted the technology, and the rest is history today. And we are not going to go back to passing paper for signatures, even contracts. All that now is handled electronically, and that's the way to go. We shouldn't wait for events like COVID. We need to have an open mindset. Now, when you talk about supply chain, very quickly, one of the areas that I see that there is huge opportunity is the use of robotic process automation for things like purchase order expediting, for invoice processing. All of that will cut a lot of man hours and help to expedite that process. In terms of marine optimization, there is a lot of opportunity there. Like we all know, if everything in our operation costs a lot of money. So if we're able to optimize the request that comes from the field and have like a center, an operating center that handles all the requests from everyone, and then deal with it accordingly. I can look back at when I started in the industry. If you want to go from one jacket to another jacket, you pass on your request. Some fields have their own dedicated helicopter. Those things are gone today. Everything is managed from the center. Whatever your request is managed, and you have like a milk run that goes around, and that's the way to optimize our operation and lower our operating cost. The other big one is use of materials. Having complete visibility on our equipment and materials, and making sure that and the technology is available today to see exactly what your inventory is and not having surplus inventory. Put the request back on the supply companies and let them handle your excess materials and equipment, and then you can manage the request from that. So I'll stop there because of time, and then turn it over to you, Deepo. Thanks.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to come back to Mr. Daniel really quickly in a minute to kind of respond to Mr. Prince's comments about partnership.
Yeah, so just very quickly, I appreciate the comment about partners being essential. However, that's not the only way that you can drive change and disruption in an organization. If everyone recollects, digital transformation is actually not new. It's a new name for it in the last few years, but prior to that, it was called innovation. So we had innovation teams and so on and so forth. And so there are a lot of models that organizations can learn from. So McKinsey, Carnegie University, etc., all have innovation models that organizations can adopt and really just kind of run a playbook, an innovation playbook, to really take them through the different steps that will eventually achieve digital transformation as well. You know, certainly within the concept of digital transformation, you do need to work with your partners within that ecosystem, because you don't work in a vacuum. But I think you can also, it's not the only way to do it. I guess you can also do it yourself and go through that process of change with strong leadership. That's just the additional comment I will add to his comments.
No, thank you very well. Thank you very well. Now we'll move on from the supply chain and vendor partnership topic, and we'll move on to a sixth question, which essentially is about who leads the change. I mean, it's the thing about who builds the cat. I want to ask this to Engineer Betty. What role should the government play in driving the adoption of digital technology and smart solutions? Clearly, there's a need to drastically bring some costs down, introduce efficiency, and make progress in terms of productivity. So we're looking for your views.
Thank you very much for that question. Like I said earlier, that if we recall the successes of the first, second, third industrial revolutions, the success factors have to do with adoption and then support by the ruling government then. So government roles includes any action that will assist the private sector in meeting public good objectives that will or cannot be accomplished by the private sector. And these objectives or these roles have to include the following: information and education, instituting agencies that will ensure appropriate and adequate dissemination of information, outreaches, organizing outreaches, education and training, technical assistance and technology transfer. They have also a very important role to play in terms of collaboration and technology development. Like we have the NICDA, we know what they are doing, which entails scientific research, technology demonstration, and intellectual property management. Then in the area of policy, the government has a role to play there in ensuring that adequate and a viable policy is enacted and disseminated among the private sector. And then in terms of market development as well, government has a role to play, which involves market assessment and analysis, market conditioning, every barrier that we mitigate every barrier that will sort of endanger the growth or the adoption of the technology. Standards of development should be enacted, and trade development and export assistance. So the government has a lot of role to play to ensure the adoption and the speed at which this technology will be implemented across every segment of the oil and gas industry in order to help driving cost optimization, human cost optimization, as well as improving the performance efficiencies across every link of the oil and gas industry. Thank you.
No, thank you for that comment. I'd like to spin it. So we've heard the role of the government in leading this change. Now, I'd like to get the role of the operators, and in about 1 or 2 minutes, Engineer Afolabi, do you mind saying something?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, the operator, the leading change. I think what I've seen so far, there have not been enough collaboration in terms of being able to drive change across by the operators. And I think it's maybe the mode in which we operate, because of a lot of legacy, legal-related issue, secrecy of information, and the need to protect your brand and some of your information. So that has basically slowed down the sharing of ideas, because there are a lot of ideas that probably the IOC have actually applied and have helped them to basically reduce their unit operating costs. And because of some of those data protection, it's been difficult to have them share with the indigenous, basically. And there are some the indigenous have actually applied that are adding value, but they've not been able to share across. I think the forum, there should be a forum where the operators actually gather. You could call it a technology forum, where they share common ideas and how those ideas are used. This will reduce even duplication of failed idea. I mean, the idea that brought or that battered the 3D printing is basically a good idea, because it actually eliminates all the investment in research in building prototype. So with 3D, you can simply develop your own prototype and begin to implement. Like we see what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic and the outbreak. And there was scarcity of masks, scarcity of the respiratory, but because of the technology of 3D, that they were able to replicate and quickly meet the higher demand for all those life support equipment. So for me, for us to really be able to lead and direct, apart from building the internal structure that supports the implementation of new ideas, we need to collaborate more at high level. And this collaboration for me will be driven easily by the regulators, the DPRs of this world, and also the partner, the NNPC, the NAPEX. There has to be a way where they can champion some of these new ideas. Like there is a software somebody brought to my company. It's a seismic interpreter software. It is up to 20 times faster than any interpreter you can imagine. to the extent. If you play Petre and play this software, when Petre is spending 2 days, this software will spend some few hours to actually analyze the same data. See, and that has been tested and tried by DPR, but how has this been, diffused into the oil and gas so that they see the value and be able to use it? So it's not very open. So there has to be an open forum where ideas are brought together and we are able to replicate good ideas rather than repeating failures. I think that's the point I would like to.
No, thank you, Engineer Afolabi. And I think the Society of Petroleum Engineers can play a pivotal role in bringing people together to improve collaboration. So I want to switch and talk about human capital development. And there's a question from the audience. So I'm going to paraphrase and actually just ask. I'd like to get the views of the workforce of the future. Folks that are right now currently studying petroleum engineering as a bachelor's students or looking to get a master's degree. What's their role in the future? What's their role as the petroleum engineer of the future? Because I get a lot of, in my workplace, I get a lot of comments by young engineers saying, do they switch out of reservoir engineering? Do they only learn how to code? Yeah, it's not a simple answer, it's a complicated answer. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Daniel. You just get some points.
So thank you. This is a question that we get from a lot of not just individuals who are obviously studying, but also organizations who are conscious about the impact they have to the economy and resources in general. So for example, a CEO of a company will say, well, if I digitize this process, then I won't have a need for, say, 100, 200 people in this space. What impact does that have on the workforce, on the community that we employ people? Like you said, it's not an easy answer, but what I will say for people who are studying in this space is that experience has taught us that as these opportunities that are more laborial, for lack of a better term, are being replaced by computing technologies, other opportunities are created as well. So there isn't a reduction in the number of jobs in total. In the space of data, for example, there's a shortage of skill sets. In the space of security, there's a cybersecurity, there's a shortage of skill sets. So most organizations are really leveraging, for example, in the question of petroleum engineers, people who have the education in petroleum and engineering, but also have the skill sets to be a data scientist or a data architect or a cybersecurity specialist, but understand their business as well. And that is the best combination and advice I can give to people who are studying, to make sure that as they continue to pursue their careers in whatever industry, even I had to retrain, right? You also incorporate all those digital technologies as part of your education so that you can be an asset to all those organizations who will require your skill sets across those different digital technologies. And that is the same recommendation we give to organizations as well, because they end up in a situation where they're looking for skilled resources across those different areas, but with the knowledge of their industry and their business.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. It is clear that multi-skilling is the way to go, right? Everybody needs a core competence, but picking up lateral horizontal skills that make you more marketable and allow you to do more with the talent that you've been trained and given is essential. Now, I want to move on to the next question, and this will be the final question of the day. So I'd like to go around the panelists in a minute or two each to get their views before closing up. And it's a question about the lower UOC, unit operating costs, and why it's so important, and also what other problems or challenges are we facing in the oil and gas industry? Because I recognize that we've spoken about the UOC challenge solely today and how digital technologies can help. So let's open. So why is this important, and what are the challenges? I will start with Mr. Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Deepo. The key challenge we have here is, and I think, and also that's what I believe is the solution, is our major partner, and NAPIMS or NNPC needs to take the leadership role aggressively and help us, and that is how we can lower our operating costs. And I'll speak specifically about just one key area, and that is a tendering process. On the average, the tendering process on the average is about 18 months. On the average is about 18 months. In some cases, in some instances, I've seen it about three, and even up to 5 years on a particular item. With the technology the way it is, with the modernization, to borrow your word, Daniel, and apply digital transformation, we can reduce that cycle time to about 3 months. And if you can imagine with the NOCs and the IOCs that NAPIMS is involved with, and they are able to manage that, a lot of man hours will be reduced significantly in that space alone. So I think that is one area that I am very, very passionate about. The current process is good, but technology has overtaken that process, and it's about time that should be changed. Thank you. I think, Daniel, you're muted. You need to unmute. Thanks.
I didn't hear the question. Was there a question for me? I'm sorry.
No, Deepo, you are muted.
Deepo, you're muted.
Oh, okay.
Yes. No. Hi. Yeah. No. I was trying to redirect the question to Mr. Annie. Can you hear me? Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Please go ahead. So the question that we're speaking about is about the importance of the lower UOC.
Okay. In one sentence, I would like to say the importance is as existence. It's about the existence of the industry, and because no industry wants to run on a loss. Competitiveness is seriously eroded, and if you look at it, we continue if the threats to the industry, for example, the energy transition, slow start to economy and all that, if it protracts, you can see the national budget, the huge deficit and all that. And the country as a whole depends mostly on the E&P industry, the oil and gas industry, to fund for the physical strength of the industry of the country. So if we are able to drive down cost of operation, you will see we begin to see more life coming into the industry. You begin to see more investment coming into the industry. And if you really read deep, you're going to see that a lot of organizations in Nigeria are having challenges financially. Production quota has been reduced. Profit margins have been reduced. So companies are finding it difficult to meet their financial obligations to the banks. So what does this mean? It also scares away, it distracts investors. So we're able to reduce UOC, and we bring back energized activity into the industry. You're going to see more investment, and you're going to see opening up the industry and more investment into the space like gas and all that. So, and like we jointly accepted and recognized, digital transformation, innovation is a key. is a major key to achieving the lower UOC. And I think maybe just going back to one question that was there before, who is to lead? The person that is to lead is a person who recognizes the importance. And I think no other person recognizes the importance than those of us here and those of us who have also keyed into this program, SPE and every mind in the industry who knows that digital is the way to go for the industry. So I wouldn't like it to be like we wait for government, DPR. No, within DPR, within NAPIMS, within government, within the EMPs, there are people who have recognized the importance of digital, and we must continue to lead. We must continue to drive. Before long, it's going to take over the industry.
Thank you, Mr. Annie. And on the final word on this topic, I'd like to come to Engineer Betty, talk about the UOC and cost reduction.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Annie, for your explanation. I'm just going to add to what he has said, that in all, as we drive towards complete adoption of technology and deploying them accordingly in all our areas of operation, I just want to mention something, that it is very, very important for us to focus on our strategies. What are we positioned to achieve, and then aligning the cost to the strategies. It is very, very important. When we align the costs across the organization and differentiate strategically critical good costs from non-essential bad costs, it will help us a lot to eliminate things that are not necessary, especially the repetitive tasks that are involved in our operations. And then also the boldness, like Mr. Annie said, innovation is very, very important, and it takes the bold hearts and the mighty man in the hearts to initiate innovation. So we must be able to aim high, be creative, and use technology, innovation, and create new ways of working to radically optimize the cost base. And the second point, the third point is setting direction and showing leadership, which had been mentioned earlier. Deliver cost optimization as a strategic business transformation program. It is very, very important as well. And then creating a culture of cost optimization. This must be well disseminated across the organization, wherever we're operating from, so that everyone will be co-owner of the intents of the cost optimization. And when we put all this together, we'll be able to drive through the deployment of technology to ensure that costs is optimized, especially at a time like this, when the cost of crude is even driving everyone crazy. However, the cost of production is on the high side. So a lot needs to be done, both from within, from the government point of view as well, and all the partners in absolute collaboration. I think we'll be able to achieve a lot, setting the strategies and putting them in appropriate place, aligning the cost to all the strategies, removing all the bad costs, and then institutionalizing the good costs. I think we'll be able to achieve a lower cost of in production. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Betty. So folks, we've heard it. The business case is clear. We need to drive down the cost of operations. We know why we need to do that, because we not only want to survive, but thrive as an industry. Now, the enablers are there, technology, digital solutions, but first we must get the data right, and we must have the right workforce and the mandate from leadership to do so. So I'd like to just at this point thank our panelists for the excellent contribution, because they've been able to tie the business case to the intent. So Engineer Betty, thank you. Mr. Daniel, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mr. Lamry, thank you. Mr. Annie, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to hand over to the program's chairperson of the SPE Lagos Section 61. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepo. Please confirm you can hear me.
I can hear you.
All right, thank you. I would like to thank everyone today for a very thought-provoking discussion. And of course, for us to do real justice to this topic, we will need a lot more time. At this time, we would like to round up the event. I would like to use the opportunity to thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Abdulrahman Mijiyawa. We also thank our very distinguished panelists and moderator for an excellent role in educating and informing all our participants, including the SPE organizing committee, on the importance of embracing Industry 4.0 technology enablers. We thank all our panelists coming from different walks of life to give us insightful points about this topical discussion. I fondly recognize and thank members of our SPE Nigerian Council, the African Regional Director and Board of Trustee members who have made time out of their busy schedules to support SPE Lagos section in the delivery of her key mandates. I say a big thank you to the distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have connected virtually from every part of the world to participate in this virtual event today. The transition of the oil and gas industry in a time like this. All successful accomplishments in life, of course, are a result of collaborative efforts. I seize the opportunity to thank the indefatigable members of SPE Lagos Section Board, led by Mr. Michael Oyere. To the organizing committee of this workshop, we say a very big thank you. And before we leave, we promise you a power-packed session tomorrow with a digitally enabled virtual field trip. You don't want to miss that. We also have 6 topical short courses on various aspects of Industry 4.0 technology enablers. We invite you to register now if you haven't done so, and be part of these short courses. They will be delivered by seasoned experts on digital innovation. SPE Lagos section has a lineup of activities for the rest of the year. On the 2nd of November, we will be holding a distinguished lecture titled Tuning a Drilling Assembly Like a Violin. This will be delivered by Jeffrey R. Bailey, the Drilling Mechanics Advisor of ExxonMobil Upstream Integrated Solutions. In addition, we have an SPE Love Box Drive initiative where we share gift packs to the less privileged, as is customary with SPE Vision. We invite you to join us in contributing to this drive in your different capacities, and we expect to see more names, donations rolling in so we can provide for the less privileged in a larger capacity. We sincerely thank everyone again for gracing these virtual events. We appreciate your time. We say thank you, stay safe, and do have a wonderful day ahead. See you again. With this, we will conclude on this event and draw the curtains as we move on to the other aspects of our various day. God bless you all.
Bless you too. Thank you.